What is up, everyone? Good morning from Playa del Carmen, Mexico. I've been living here the last 3 years, and I sold everything about 10 years ago and living in various places in the world that I've wanted to kind of figure out where I want to live and spend my time and enjoy life. And this has worked out really well for me. But prior to this, I was traveling full time at times. I also lived in Bali for 3 years. Spent a couple winters in Arizona when I got super injured, and then spent summers in Minnesota and also in Europe, traveling a variety of different places there. So, yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster over the last 10 years, to say the least. Feels like a couple decades at this point. And I just thought I've learned a lot of good lessons, either through gain or through pain. And I thought I'd start to share some of those things because just enjoying life and doing my own thing was really nice. But at the same time, I feel like I'm not really helping anyone with just kind of keeping it to myself. So, had some major health setbacks about 12 years ago. In my early 30s, I started having more and more health issues. I used to work hard, play hard all the time, and that really took a toll on me. I finally figured out about 10 years ago that I had some major gut issues and food allergies, and it was literally killing me. I had blood red eyes every day, crazy anxiety. I was running twice a day to deal with the anxiety and taking searing hot baths, and yeah, it got really nuts. And finally found a woman who knew what I was dealing with, and talking to her. In about 10 minutes of talking to this woman, she told me what I had and what I should do. I did it, and in 3 days, I started to feel so much better. It was just absolutely shocking. So, one of my kind of awakenings, that one with my health, and after a series of different events, going to Tony Robbins events and other self-development things, exploring what I wanted in life, I decided to completely unplug from that other life and start over, start fresh. I went on a healing journey. Like I said, I started traveling full time, all sorts of different countries, South America, Europe, and then over to Asia. And I fell in love with Bali. I loved that for quite a few years. That was amazing. But I ultimately settled here in Mexico. But today I just thought I'd finally get started with this vlog, and I'm going to run an errand here in Playa. I'm going over to bring some material to have some curtains made because I'm going to be finishing a podcast studio here in my apartment, my condo, so that I can start interviewing just so many amazingly unique people that have also unplugged and are living this freedom-based lifestyle. Growing up in Minnesota, I absolutely hated the winters. I loved aspects of Minnesota, but I knew it wasn't my forever place, and so I started feeling that at about 10 or 12 years old. We'd always go to visit my grandparents in Arizona, and it was just perfect 85-degree weather, and I just kept thinking to myself, why in the hell does anybody stay in Minnesota when you can have this weather in the winter? So that really planted a seed in me. Every time I went home from Arizona, I literally at times would cry. This is like 12 years old or something like that, but I would just be so upset that I had to go back to Minnesota in the winter time. So yeah, I ended up going to college. I never thought I'd stay in Minnesota. Ended up staying in Minnesota, got involved in a family business way too young, and stayed in that for over 12 years. And it was really good to me. I worked my ass off and saved for years, and then had all these health issues and just pulled the plug. So, yeah, there's been a lot of lessons: health, spirituality, mental, physical, just the whole gamut. And I thought that not sharing that is really a pity. I've been enjoying life and having all this freedom, and I thought that it's finally time to start sharing what I've learned so that other people can start to experience this type of freedom, this type of flexibility, being able to be where you want, when you want, with who you want, and enjoying life to the maximum. So I've always been a hacker in a sense, in terms of trying to figure out the best ways to eat and save and invest and maximize my life experience, because we only have this one life that we know of at this point. I do believe in the afterlife, but while we're here, I think we need to make the most of it. So I'm going to start sharing on all of that and interviewing people that have amazing, incredible life stories, overcoming major challenges, making changes, and really figuring out what they want in life and how they can live their life's purpose. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, make sure to follow, subscribe, give me a like, all that kind of stuff. I'm just starting out here, just starting to share. I've never been one for public speaking or sharing much, but I think it's finally time. So yeah, I'll grab my stuff and we're going to head out. I live here in Playa del Carmen in the Colosio area, which is a much more kind of locals area. It's what I like. I don't like to be in the center with all the much more tourism and all of that. Out here, it's nice and peaceful. If you look over here, this is just the mangroves area. This is Fifth Avenue, the street that kind of runs through the entire town. And then this is Cocoa Beach out here. So you have the ocean right here. There's a walk-through right here. And then back up here, there's a walk-through up here. So yeah, it's my little slice of heaven for now. This area is going to become very, very popular here in the coming years. It's already starting to explode. There's a lot of cafes, a lot of new buildings are coming in. But for now, it's still chill. We're definitely going to be hearing some dogs in the street, just kids playing around, running in the street. I'll give you a little taste of Mexico. So anyways, let's do this. So yeah, now I'm just cruising here on Fifth Avenue. Got my nice dorky hat on. The sun is so bright and so intense. It is night and day compared to Minnesota in the summertime. I was actually just back in Minnesota for about a month, and I honestly get a little bit more tan in Minnesota than I do in Mexico because I can stay out in the sun so much longer. When I get out in the sun here, I just feel this instant searing on my skin. But yeah, this is Colosio, so it's definitely a little bit more local, a little bit more rough. There's just trash in the streets, dogs barking, all sorts of stuff. But I love it. Chill, and you kind of just do whatever you want to do and don't worry about the rest. So yeah, as we walk here, we'll probably have some dogs barking, motorcycles, trucks, birds, whatever Mexico brings us. So like I was saying, I kind of sold everything 10 years ago and started to travel. It took a lot for me to step away from my former life. I was very involved in a home building company. I helped design the homes. I did all the marketing. I mean, obviously with the help of others, but was in charge of the marketing and magazine layouts and flyers and mailers and events that we put on, and realtor relations and all these different things that we were doing to bring in customers for building and designing unique custom homes. And it was a great business. It was a really challenging time after the 2008 housing crisis, and that stress just built up in me for years. And my only way to deal with it back then was to party a lot, go out, go on vacations, just kind of unload. And nowadays I live a much more tranquil life. I've learned my lessons with the work hard, play hard atmosphere and attitude. And now I after I sold everything, I went on a healing journey that landed me in Bali and got really deep into breath work and yoga and all these other healing modalities that really help to just unwind the stress and all these different emotions that I had been holding down for so long. It's a really important part of the process. If you are going to unplug, you really need to deal with what you've been bearing for so long. But yeah, it took a lot of things to happen for me to actually finally pull the plug. It's like anyone that's in a really committed situation, whether it's marriage or work or whatnot, you kind of have these projections of what your life would be if you had total freedom, or if you had more freedom or less obligations. And a lot of times we just fall into things in life. Things happen and we try to make the best of it and we end up somewhere. and we're not really guiding our life. We're not really creating our life on our terms. We're trying to appease other people, trying to make other people happy, trying to not disappoint people. And I lived my life that way for so long, for so long. It was crazy. For me, the person I looked up to the most was my dad. Amazing guy, and taught me so much. Super intense, very singularly focused, and I'm much more of a kind of perspective person. And for so many years I was working in the model homes. We built these custom homes, and then we'd have people come through them on the weekends, and we'd meet people who wanted to maybe build a home. They were considering their options, and I'd be looking out the windows. Sometimes it'd be real dead for the afternoon, and I'd look out the window just thinking, oh, what am I doing? Is this where I want to be? Is this how I want to spend my time? I had so many regrets for not following my intuition and taking the path that I wanted to take. I based my decisions mostly on what would my dad think of my decision, or what would everyone, is this the safest option, or very risk adverse. Growing up, I always wanted to be in finance and work out on Wall Street and be in the pits like in the 80s, how traders traded in the 80s. I studied business and economics in school and ended up staying in Minnesota for school when I wanted to go outside of Minnesota, and ended up getting involved in a family business when I wanted to be working in New York or somewhere else in a really intense environment, trading commodities and stocks and whatnot. Ultimately, that resentment had grew in me over the years. I worked for a consulting firm for 2 years right out of school, and then got involved in my dad's business at about 24 and worked in that until I was about 36. So I got involved in 2004, and the market was just peaking in the US then. And by 2006, we started to see the cracks. We started to see the drop-off in demand, and prices were getting really high, and all these crazy loans that they were doing, no documentation type loans. And by 2007, houses were sitting, which they weren't sitting before. And by 2008, Lehman Brothers crashed in September. I never forget that. September 2008. The markets crashed, and everyone knew that we had a major problem. The home builders knew we had a problem way before that, but all of a sudden everyone knew it. And yeah, the whole market tanked. I'd say about 90% of our competition went out of business. So I worked in this neighborhood that had 12 home builders and then 3 builders that built like townhomes. And by the end of it, every single other single-family home builder had gone out of business, and one of the townhome builders survived. So yeah, it was really ugly, super stressful. And from 2009 to about 2012, everyone was just trying to do their best to continue to move product and continue to stay in business. They never really fixed anything, and they still haven't. They just patch things over, they give more stimulus, they do all this stuff. I had a major breakup in 2008 as well, and I was pretty heartbroken about that for many years afterwards, actually. And between the stress of work and my heartbreak, I decided to travel when I could and party every weekend and beat the shit out of myself for years. Pretty ridiculous looking back on it, but eventually it caught up to me. And by about 2013, 2014, I was having major health problems. Another big truck. I was having major health problems, and I started really questioning things. Regret that I hadn't done something sooner. I was mad at myself. I was super frustrated, but thankfully through that whole time I had been living super minimalistic and saving and investing for some future that I didn't know about. That's a piece of advice I'd give you if you're in this position at all, is definitely need to live below your means. Always live below your means, because then you give yourself choice, you give yourself options. So many people try to find satisfaction or validation or whatever through the things that they buy. I've lived in a world that's had really nice houses and boats and all of this kind of stuff, but none of that stuff makes you happy. None of it makes you happy. It never made me happy. And I just realized it was more obligation. So at one point, I was on a ski trip with some friends, and they had suggested I was having more and more digestive issues all the time, felt like shit every day. 3 of the people on the trip actually were gluten-free, and my mom actually was a celiac. Growing up, I knew all about not being able to eat gluten and having food allergies, and so I said, I'll give it a try. And I went gluten-free. I didn't actually stick with it completely. I would probably cheat on my diet 2 to 3 times a week, and I felt better, but it didn't really solve things. Ultimately, I got worse and worse and worse. It was in the fall of 2014, I went on a trip with some buddies to Austin, Texas, and I had a major meltdown. I had a major health issue there. And I went and sat down by the river in Austin, Texas. After a night out with friends, I ended up just had this, I'll have to have a whole different vlog about just this one moment, but I had this major awakening basically, and something inside of me absolutely died. I called my brother and I called one of my best friends, and I told him that, I couldn't do it anymore, and that something inside of me had died, and that I was in a complete turning point, and they actually thought I was going to kill myself. I would say I was probably slightly suicidal at the time because I thought there was no end in sight. And that started everything. I quit drinking right on the spot after that trip. I had such bad symptoms after that. I ended up quitting drinking in December of 2014, and then I thought things would get better. I had searing pain in my body every day. I had blood red eyes every single day, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And then in March of 2015, I ended up having 3 life epiphanies, 3 kind of awakening moments in 30 days. One with my health, one with spirituality, and one with my work. And that was totally transforming. At that point, my life was completely spinning, and I didn't know what to do. I was seriously contemplating leaving the business and trying to figure out a different path, but I didn't know what the path would be. Yeah, with the health thing, I'd mentioned it before, but I went to this lady, and within 10 minutes of talking to her, she told me what I had and what I should do, and then 3 days later, I felt so much better. I pulled over my car just bawling my eyes out and thanking God, and it was so incredibly powerful. My eyes cleared up right away. I stopped biting my nails, and I'd bit my nails my whole life. Never could quit. I got so much more ripped. My whole life, I could never gain muscle. I was a competitive wrestler for years growing up in like junior high, high school, and then into college, and could never really gain any muscle, gain strength. When I figured out my health issues, I was 35 years old, and all of a sudden I just got so lean, so strong. It was shocking, the transformation. So I'll be sharing about that. Since then, I've learned so much about gut health. I've been helping people to reclaim their health and deal with all sorts of symptoms, depression and anxiety, and all the stuff that comes just from what we eat and our gut biome. They're understanding so much about the gut biome now that it's our second brain for sure. Our vagus nerve runs down into our gut from our brain. It's the largest part of our nervous system, and it controls so much of how we feel and what we think. So yeah, I had the health awakening and these other 2 awakenings, and my life was totally spinning out of control. I was still working and doing my best. And the guy that was renting from me at the time, I had this big house on acreage. I was planning to develop the land around it, and I rented out the majority of the house and lived in part of the house and took care of the property and everything because I was planning to build homes on the rest of the land there. And This guy volunteered 80 days of the year with Tony Robbins. And so he said, you really got to go to a Tony Robbins event. It'll give you clarity. So in June of 2015, I went to a Tony Robbins event, and it completely blew my mind. It's like the biggest rock concert you've ever been to, mixed with self-development and figuring out what you want in your life and gaining clarity. So instead of just like cheering for some rock star up there who's playing music, you're cheering for yourself. You're having these huge breakthroughs and just having a blast. And so yeah, I went to that event and gained a ton of clarity on my life and what I wanted, and my health was doing better. Everything seemed like it was going in the right direction. And then it came into September of 2015, and we went back into a really busy time in our year at work, and my health had some setbacks, and I made some mistakes with my diet, and the stress started to overwhelm me all over again. Yeah, my dad even noticed and said, maybe you need to take a little bit of a break or something, and it started to plant some seeds. And after we went to the first Tony Robbins event, I made a deal with my dad that they had an upcoming business mastery event in 6 months, and I said, I'll pay for the event, and if you come, I'll pay for the event, and if you enjoy it, you can split it with me, and if you don't enjoy it, don't worry about it, I'll cover it. But the only requirement is that we go to the next Tony Robbins event in October in Los Angeles, another intro event to get them on the same page, so that when we went into the business mastery event, we were on the same page and had the same vision for what we wanted to change and shift at the company. And we went to that second Tony Robbins event, and during the event, he does what's called the close the eye process. Basically, it's kind of like meditation, but you're visualizing what you want in life. With this particular closed eye process, he had you decide what are 2 things that you've dealt with in the past that were super difficult. You didn't know how you're going to make it work, but you made it work. You made the shift, and you came out on the other side. So you're visualizing that, and then you're seeing yourself overcome these challenges and break through and make a difference. And then he asked the question, what 2 things do you need to shift right now? What 2 things do you need to make a major change on that would completely open up your life? And both myself and my dad simultaneously decided to help get me out of the business. And it was so scary to come to that realization, because it was the unknown. All of a sudden, I was going to be stepping out of this business that I was so involved with and integrated with. And after the event, I had brought 10 other people with me, so there was 12 of us total, and we walked down to this restaurant, and my dad and I were way ahead of the group, so we went down to this restaurant. We walked inside, and the hostess came up and asked us if we wanted a table, and I told them how many people. My dad looked at me and said what my 2 things were, and I told him, and he told me that his major decision was to help get me out of the business as well, and I was just completely shocked. So we walked over to the table, we sat down and just had a discussion about it, and he said, yeah, I understand. I see it now. You've been involved with this for so long, you haven't had the opportunity to go and figure out what you want and whatnot. And so we made a plan right there, and we didn't tell anyone about it at the company. And I started to plan my escape, essentially, how I was going to unplug my life from being so involved in this company and just step away and make a major shift. So by December, I did go to that business mastery and was planning for my future. He was planning for his future without me. And in January of 2016, I stepped away 100%. Unplugged, and went on an adventure of a lifetime. I went to South America first, then to Europe for about 3 or 4 months, came back to Minnesota, reloaded, and then started to travel in various other areas, and I landed in Bali in January of 2017. And wow, that was a real eye-opener. I found the exact place I needed to be. And I was actually on the start of a 4 to 5 month trip around Asia, and I never even left Bali. I got really involved in the community there. There's so much healing opportunities, and I was in Ubud, Bali, which is the more hippie area, the yoga and meditation center of that area. Spent 6 months in Bali and then came back to the US for a family reunion that I always make. And yeah, things just evolved from there. So it's been quite a journey, and like I said, it's been a lifetime of experiences, it feels like, since then. And yeah, I'm just going to be sharing some of the things that I learned and places that I've been and people that I've met and insights that I've had. And I feel like I've had so much to share that I haven't started, because I feel like there's so much to share about and so many different topics and places, and so much has happened. It's hard to start. So this is my start. I'm just going to be sharing one piece at a time. I've been looking up at the staircase of this journey and looking towards the end of it. Where do I want to go? What do I ultimately want to do with this? And feeling overwhelmed, but I know that I just have to take it one step at a time. Ultimately, I want to help other people to go on this journey and unplug. So I've designed a program called the Unplug Experience, and I'll be letting people join me in various other areas that I'm traveling and try out, come on sabbaticals. People can leave for 2 months, whatever they need to start, to get a taste and experience another life themselves in a different place, and kind of get some grounding, get some healing, get some clarity on life, and then make a decision about what they want in their life and the next steps. So if something like that's interesting to you, make sure to comment and let me know. I'd be super curious where you'd want to go, what you'd want to experience. If you had a month to go anywhere that you wanted and experience something, where would it be? For me, I just wanted to see everything. I had purposely done what they call burn the boats. I purposely didn't leave anything behind in Minnesota for myself so that I didn't get tempted to go back. But not everybody's in that position. Everybody's coming from a different place, mentally, emotionally, financially. So everyone has to make this decision for themselves, and it's going to be one of the scariest things you ever do, but also one of the most rewarding things that you ever do. And the clarity is priceless. I walked away from so much in Minnesota, business-wise, financially, my family, my friends, everything that I knew. But I definitely wouldn't take it back. I'm so glad that I went on this journey, and I'm living the life that I always wanted, having total flexibility. I live right by the beach. I have an amazing group of friends. I go on adventures all the time, and it's been so rewarding for myself. But I also realize that there's so many other people out there that feel stuck and feel trapped and don't have the energy anymore to do what they want. And so that's where I think I can help people, help them regain their energy, help them regain their health, and make the changes they need to make to step into a life that's completely different that they're living right now. And for me, one of the worst feelings in the world is feeling trapped, feeling stuck, feeling hopeless. And it just drains the life force out of you. So yeah, it really takes a lot of courage and a lot of facing your inner demons to make the switch, but it is so worth it. We'll continue here on the journey, going to get my material for this podcast studio, and we'll go from there. Look at who I got visiting me now. Well, he's not too interested right now. He's off to find some other things. Anyways, yeah, we'll continue on the journey here and see what we can find. All right, so I'm here with Alberto. This is my guy.
Hello.
Alberto is my main squeeze for getting my laundry done, doing a whole bunch of things, but I'm here to pick up some material that I dropped off for getting these curtains done. Gonna pick up a whole bunch of laundry that he always helps me with. He is the best, the absolute best. El mejor.
Good.
Eres lo máximo.
Oh, thank you, my friend.
So yeah, gonna pick this up, grab the material, go over to this other spot, and we'll get working on it. All right, so I got the material. This is some black material. We're going to be shooting a podcast, and this is the background. So just bringing it over to this little tienda over here, and they're going to help me with making it into a curtain so that we can actually have a decent background. Got another place under construction here. That's the one thing here in Playa that's a little bit of a bummer, but it's part of any place that's super busy. You have constant construction. This building here just is going up. One thing I do love about Mexico is the people are just so energetic and so happy and just really kind people in general. So many of my friends won't even visit me here in Mexico because they're too afraid of it. They see all the things on the news and they think it's such a dangerous place, but the reality is that I tend to be much more cautious and afraid to go in the major cities of the US at this point than I would in most places in Mexico. The US has changed so much in the last, say, 5 years. Minneapolis especially is just 10 years ago was rated the number one place on Money Magazine to live because of so many different aspects, and now there's so many of my friends that live in Minnesota, the Twin Cities metro area, but they don't even go to downtown Minneapolis because they don't feel safe anymore. So here, as long as you're not stupid and get yourself into problems with the wrong people, totally fine. Especially here in Playa del Carmen, there's a lot of police on the street. They're always showing their presence, and I've never, not one time, have felt unsafe here in Playa del Carmen, which is a pretty positive thing because, like I said, most people you read on the news, oh, Mexico's so unsafe, but the reality is just people. So anyways, yeah, we're headed over to the seamstress. We're going to drop this stuff off and then run some other errands, and hopefully in a day or two I'll have the podcast studio ready to go and start shooting. So that's the plan. I am going to do some upcoming travels, considering where I'm going right now. I want to explore some other cities in Mexico, so I'm considering Guadalajara, Guanajuato, maybe Oaxaca, or San Cristobal. But we'll see. With the time that I have right now, I might actually head to South America. So I have some friends in Colombia and I have some friends in Paraguay. And I've been wanting to check out Paraguay for a while. I've been to Colombia 3 times now before. And yeah, again, one of those things that people worry about safety. And I would definitely say that Colombia is definitely next level compared to Mexico. You really have to watch out. I had a friend whose phone was stolen right out of his pocket in a Christmas family event. He was standing right next to me. It was like something out of a movie where a rush of people from both sides came down this narrow aisle of a walkway, bumped my friend, and boom, his phone was gone instantly. So got to keep your head on a swivel in Colombia, that's for sure. But here we have a local park and recreation area. There's some markets up here straight ahead. There are people selling fruits and waiting for buses and doing all sorts of stuff. I would have to say that the food is pretty good down here. We'll be showcasing some of the different restaurants. One major challenge, and I didn't mention this with my health issues, but the one thing that was really poisoning me was actually corn. Corn is my number one allergy. And growing up, because my mom was a celiac, we had avoided gluten so much. And actually Mexican food for the most part is basically gluten-free other than the tortillas. We started eating so much Mexican food. I probably ate Mexican food like 3 or 4 days a week. And I ended up getting an allergy to corn. I eat corn chips every day as my favorite snack. Corn chips and salsa. Once I had met this nutritionist that told me about what I needed to do, I completely stripped corn out of my diet. And I cheated on my diet a few times, didn't know that I was allergic to corn yet, and almost went to the hospital the third time. And then finally recognized that it's the freaking corn. I had taken a food allergy even that said that my number one allergy was corn. And I literally said out loud, oh, that's funny, I'm not allergic to corn. And it's just to showcase how often the thing that's really messing us up, we're not even aware of. It's something that we're doing every day that is really affecting our health, but we don't even know any better because it's just the way that we've always done it. So yeah, if you do have health issues, that you have ongoing chronic inflammation and pain and challenges like that, so often it's diet. And if you have not heard of what's called a food diary, that is the ultimate way to figure out what's messing you up. So if you're ever interested in doing a food diary, post in the comments down below. If you're ever interested in figuring out what's wrong with you with your diet, you got to do a food diary. You got to really document what you're eating and when you're eating it through the day, and then you can really narrow down what the problem is. So if you want to comment down below food diary, I can reach out and we can chat about that. I can help you get started, and really makes all the difference, all the difference. All right, so we got the sandia. We're also getting piña. We got a little pineapple there. Love it, love it. Gotta love these. ¿Qué tipo es esto?
Aguacate local.
Local. This is not a Hass avocado. This is something that they grow here more local. Lots of unique fruits and whatnot. Got some star fruit. What's this? Let's check this one out. ¿Qué es esto?
Zaramullo. Zaramullo.
Zaramullo. ¿Es dulce o qué?
Dulce.
Dulce. Muy dulce. Oh, I might have to try this as well. Oh, look at the papayas. Oh, you got some dragon fruit. And check out the size of these mangoes. Love it, love it. Oh, so little unsuccessful with the seamstress, but I did end up getting a whole bunch of fruit and vegetables. It's kind of like when you walk into Costco, you never walk out with just one thing. Went to the fruit stand and thought I'd just get some watermelon, and I ended up getting onions and carrots and potatoes and this new fruit that she said the name of it, but I can't even remember. I got a nice pineapple, and I'm gonna do a little cooking today and enjoy. It's definitely Mexico when you got the rooster going in the morning. It actually is living in their house, no joke. So yeah, I'm excited about everything going forward here. I've had some major life shifts lately, and it's the perfect time to just get this going, focus on other things. And I've been meaning to start the podcast since 2017, if you can believe that. At one point I was starting this company down in Bali. I had a team of 3 other people, so the 4 of us had a villa there, and we were starting what was called Vibrant Life, which is this larger project that I'll be building here going forward. But it was a similar theme, people to fly down, have deep transformational experiences along with adventure travel experiences. So it really opens up the mind. You meet and connect with really amazing people who are also going through that experience. But at the time in Bali, it was the worst place I could set it up because I couldn't publicly advertise it, or I would be sent out of the country, because you can't work in the country locally or physically. You can work online, but you can't be taking people on tourism events and things like that. That would be a instant deportation. So yeah, just wasn't the right timing in my life, I guess, and I'm really trying to trust the flow of life more. A lot of times we want things and we kind of just push and push and push when it's really not the right time to be doing it. We burn ourselves out. So that was my second burnout in life after the experience in Bali, and it was sad to shut everything down and put everything on hold, but it definitely was the right thing to do at the time. We were having a lot of challenges with some of the basics. We didn't have a person that really knew the marketing side and could build us the website and everything that we needed to do, so we were getting bogged down in the technical difficulties. And nowadays, it's absolutely incredible what you can do with AI now. There's tools now that you can just type 4 sentences describing what you want in a website, and it builds you the entire website in 5 minutes like that. Total workable website, buttons, requests for action, all the things, all the integration built right into it. You can plug different tools into it, and in an hour you can have more set up than would take you weeks or months, depending on your skill level, to finish. So it's going to be so much easier to get going now and to get the setup that I need and get all the logistics figured out. I've always been more of a strategy person and a people person than a technical person, that's for sure. So when the technical side becomes really easy, everything in your business can move so much faster. I'm just going to introduce you to one of my friends here. I'm walking down the street, and this little guy, this dog, he's a little bit of a son of a bitch at times. He remembers me and then just thinks I'm like the devil the next day. When I first moved into this street, I live on the end of the street, and we've had some battles. Chased me on my bike multiple times. So we had to have a little come to Jesus conversation one time, and now we're cool. So yeah, life here is very different than my life in the States. When I fly back to the States and I take my car out of storage, it's like, oh, so nice, because I know I can go anywhere I want in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes and buy anything I want. Total flexibility. And that's really nice. I don't have a car down here. But life in Mexico is pretty amazing as well. It just depends on what you want and what you're willing to give up. But yeah, here I look over the jungle and get to go to the ocean whenever I want and have an amazing group of expat friends that just think differently. All right, there you go. My first walk and talk video. I hope you guys got some value. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to be headed on some adventures all over Latin America this winter, and I'd love to bring you the best spots to check out yourself. That's me signing off. Explore with Jeremiah.